Can't believe it, but 2015 is nearing the close. All the outlets out there are nominating their best games of 2015. My workplace, Examiner, we nominated our top 3, which is Super Mario Maker, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, and Metal Gear Solid 5. Now, while some of those may be on my personal list, Mario Maker is not, just to give a little bit of disappointment to some of you. But there are some amazing games on my list, and I want to present to you my top 10 of 2015. Now, to those that didn't make the list, don't worry, I got you covered in another video and article throughout the next couple weeks until we get to that big miraculous New Year's Eve. But before all that, let's begin with my top 10 games of 2015. So I may be one of the only people that nominates this game for a top 10 or a top game of 2015 in general. It got a lot of slack for a lot of things. People called it short, people called the gameplay rote and stuff like this, but I found the gameplay, fine. It was a fine cover shooter game. The visuals were amazing, the setting and the story and everything was great. It ended on a weird note and it got convoluted in like the middle. It's kind of like one of those things where it's like, are you really doing this? Can't you just say something to somebody else and make it make sense? I don't know. Either way, just the whole lore of the game just makes me want a new one. And it's just like, hands down, that and Battlefront are like the 2 best PS4 games I've ever seen in my life. And okay, it does have its shortcomings. It's not the best game on the list, but I just think it's so unique. And I definitely need to share some praise because I think it really is going to be underlooked by a lot of people. And I really did enjoy the experience. Here's another surprise. If you told me in the beginning of 2015 that I would nominate the next Assassin's Creed to be on my list, I would have punched them in the face just because the series has gone downhill in a lot of different ways. But Syndicate just brought it back. I do have some problems with it. The story ends on such a lackluster note, as well as why they're in London in the first place. It doesn't really make sense. There's not a lot of motivation around, and the real world stuff is really dumb. It just kind of just ends on a flat note. But story aside, the gameplay is so good. And the visuals, they don't look that good, and a little worse than Unity maybe. But the thing is, I think they toned down the graphics in order to make the city run better. Sure, I had some glitches here and there, but it ran a lot better than Unity, and I'm okay with like an open world not looking particularly that good if the actual art direction is great. And the art direction was good. All the stagecoach fighting was super silly, but I loved it a lot. The grappling hook swinging over here and to and fro. I loved having 2 characters, even though they didn't really feel that good singly. It could have been more diverse, I suppose, for both characters. They just felt too the samey, even though they had like different paths for the leveling up and stuff like that. But yeah, a lot of fun. I completed so much of that map just because I was addicted just to the gameplay. And again, not a perfect game by any means, that's why it's number 9, but I just had so much fun with it. Here's one that is just pure fun, and that is Disney Infinity 3.0. Now, again, not a perfect game, slacking in some content, and others it's just brimming with. Being able to go all to these Disney worlds and create your own levels and having all these characters interact with one another, and it has like this weird minigame, kind of like Diablo, which is kind of cool. But the actual pack itself for like the Clone Wars kind of stuff for the Star Wars is just awesome. The figures are fantastic as always, and the add-on packs are great too. There's a bunch of fun Star Wars games that people aren't playing because just like the initial entry is kind of expensive, but it's a really, really fun game. Again, expensive with all the figures and stuff, but they're just like really good looking, so it's not like you're getting just a character, you're getting something for your desk too. And I'm not trying to shell anything out here, I just had a lot of fun playing it. Just a cool co-op game and just an immersive world, and I'm a Disney person, I'm a Marvel person, I'm a Star Wars person. It's just kind of like a toy box come to life. Nothing substantial with any kind of story or anything like that, but just gameplay wise and just kind of fun. It's just the fun factor is funny the funniest. Fun. I have been waiting a long time for Final Fantasy Type 0 to be localized in America, and now it's in HD. Plus, it came with a demo of Final Fantasy 15, which I don't know if that really rates on here to make it higher on the list, because it has like an awesome game attached to it, but the game itself is pretty fun. It's not the classic Final Fantasy style of turn-based combat, but the action style is really cool. The visuals look a little weird since they're kind of up-resed from the PSP, and maybe it would have been better as a Vita game, but it actually plays great with remote play on the Vita, so that's something. It's just kind of a different take on Final Fantasy, and I enjoyed the story, I enjoyed the art style of everything. The whole Academy thing reminded me of Final Fantasy VIII, and like the action RPG stuff was like so good. There's so much to do in this game, and I'm just so glad that we finally get it. Plus, yeah, maybe that demo has something to do with it too. Until Dawn was a huge surprise for me. I thought that it was going to come out of nowhere and be terrible, but it actually came out of nowhere and was fantastic. Another game where I had problems with the story, in that I think there might have been little plot holes and deniable plausibility with all the horror stuff when they reveal. But I think that's with the genre. I think the genre has deniable plausibility with so many things. But just the visuals were so good, the characters, the acting was cheesy, but I think that was on purpose. The interaction and having like this open-ended thing where people can die and the story changes. Maybe on it, wears that on its sleeve. Maybe it doesn't change that much depending on what you do, but just having your own journey is great as well. And I think it really is just kind of one of those great adventure games, just kind of rebranded into a new type of gameplay mechanics. Does it hold up after multiple playthroughs? Maybe not, but it's still super fun and just enjoyable to sit on the couch and just watch all these weird reactions to this teen comedy of these teens in quotes, but they're definitely not teens. It's odd. It's a very odd game. Now, the fact that I'm putting Fallout 4 in my number 5 slot is super weird for me. This is another one of those moments where if I would have told myself that it would have not made like my top 1 to 3 slot, or even especially number 1, I would have punished myself, because I just have been waiting for another Fallout for so long. But this one is a little disappointing in that it really does look like Fallout 3, maybe a little bit better, but that's not a damning thing. I really think I could play these games just bi-yearly or something like that, just expansions or something. It's just the gameplay is so addictive. It plays a lot better than the last one. The quests are kind of cool. I think the whole thing for me is I just want another world to explore, and it really is enriching just to go to this random place and find all these things with all these rando weapons. Sure, it's glitchy as hell, and it's not a pretty game, like I really mean it. It looks like a maybe better version of 3, slightly. So they really haven't changed the formula of what makes Fallout, the evolution that was from 2 to 3. 3 to 4 is a kind of intermingle sequel where nothing much has changed, even though they pack it with all this building stuff in there. I don't know. I feel like I'm coming down on the game quite a bit, but I really do enjoy it. It's just that it's just kind of like going home. It just feels good, but it's also nothing life-shattering as well, if that makes sense. Now that we're getting to top 4 territory, these were super hard to figure out, but Bloodborne is definitely so close to number 1, as is the rest of these games, except for number 1, because number 1 is number 1. Anyway, I had played the Dark Souls game before, and I enjoy what they did, but this is the first Bloodborne or a Dark Souls thing that I have finished. Bloodborne just compelled me. It compelled me. Another game where maybe the visuals aren't that great, but the lore and the setting and the design with everything was so awesome. It was like a reborn Castlevania game. You're exploring this town with these interlocking things. You're not really getting gear to move on to the next area, but you're getting these sweet weapons and these just amazing, oozy, creepy boss fights, and just the normal enemies as well. Yeah, it kicked my ass. It's super hard. It's not hard in the sense that it's impossible. It's hard that you just need to dedicate some time to it. But if you do, it's just such a great time. It's just really enveloping with the darkness. It just, again, I just can't emphasize enough how like dripping with just power Bloodborne is. It's great, but it's not without some problems, which is maybe why it's a little bit lower on my list. But man, what a great time I had with this game. The Witcher 3 has been on so many lists. It's just going to be one of those games where it could possibly be the Witcher 3 Game Awards, so many outlets. For me, Not quite, but very close. It is the only open world game this year that I think really achieves the whole open-endedness with great visuals, I should say. It's not without glitches, but man, does that world look gorgeous. I took so many screenshots of just sunsets and going in the water. It's just beautiful. Maybe the characters are kind of like ugly at points, but that's just kind of maybe the design or whatever. But the actual protagonist characters are just beautiful creatures. It's just so huge, and the quests. This is the first RPG with quests that actually makes sense. You do something for oh, go kill these people over here, just like a fetch quest you'd think, and it turns into this epic thing that goes on and on with these interlinking things. It's just mind-blowing. Such a great game. And I had liked the other two games before this, but man, Witcher 3 is just far and above those games. And maybe it's just maybe a little bit too huge, but it's without a doubt such a great, amazing 2015 game. Putting Axiom Verge at number 2 breaks my heart. It's so close between 1 and 2 that it just is so hard. But Axiom Verge came out at almost the perfect time for me. I had just finished up Final Fantasy Type 0, which again I liked, but it was a rough time in my life where that game came out. And Axiom Verge came out right after that to bring me out of that funk. It is an amazing tribute to Metroid and Castlevania. More so Metroid, but it has that Metroidvania kind of gameplay style. Tons of weapons, amazing just art. The story is actually great, like the twists and turns that it takes. It's so cool. I just love exploring that game so much. It was just a fantastic surprise. It came out of nowhere, an indie game by one guy. One guy did the music and the game. It's so amazing. Axiom Verge has to be on more lists. I am seeing it here and there for nominations, but don't shingle this out to a indie game, best indie game or whatever. No, this is one of the best games of not only 2015, but of all time. It is just a fantastic game. I don't care how much it is right now, whatever the price is currently. It might be at full price $20 and it keeps on going down, or maybe it's $15. I don't care. You should pay whatever they ask for it because it's just do it. It's so good. So yes, Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. I just love this series so much, and this game is such a bittersweet note to it. It's the last Metal Gear Solid game Kojima will ever do. It is the last Konami game Konami will ever do. Maybe. It's just the last Metal Gear in so many ways, and just like the last game Kojima will make for Konami. There's so much like weird stuff with that behind the scenes, especially with cut content, and there's a lot of things in the game that I feel like are just maybe not fully visualized. Like the story, it's a good story. It's not as wacky as the other games, and like the ending is so crazy as well that I did not see coming at all. But if you look into this game, you can see that Kojima might have pulled like a huge thing. If he was at Konami and was able to do another Metal Gear Solid, I think this would make The Phantom Pain like one of the greatest projects of like all time. If he was able to like put everything in there that he wanted and maybe not got sidetracked or something. Again, there's some stuff in there, especially the ending, that I wish they could have done, but I think budget has a lot to do with it, and just like the whole controversy with Konami itself. But all that aside, the best part, this is the best playing Metal Gear Solid game ever. And just one of the best playing games of all time. It's so addictive. It's an open world game, but it's actually an open world in multiple open world areas, and not for, random stuff to do. A lot of people said like, oh, it's an open world with not a lot to do, but there's so many bases, there's so many things to collect, and it's just such a fun game. And the partner system and all the unique designs and weapons to play around with. It's just, I could gush on about Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain so much, but it's just, again, it's bittersweet to have to say goodbye on some weird terms for Metal Gear and Kojima and Konami, but it's just really just the best game of 2015 for me. For a lot of people maybe, for a lot of people maybe not, but for me, hands down, just an emotional connection is there on so many levels that maybe some of these games don't have. Again, it breaks my heart that Axiom Verge was not it. It was so close, but I just love the series so much that I just really felt a connection with this one.
Boom, ba-jack, boom, boom, ba-jack, boom, ba-jack, boom, boom, ba-jack, boom, ba-jack, boom, boom, ba-jack, boom, ba-jack, boom, boom, subscribe, boom, ba-jack, boom, boom, ba-jack, boom, ba-jack, boom, boom, ba-jack, boom, ba-jack, boom, boom, ba-jack, boom, ba-jack, boom, boom, subscribe.